All right, so now that we're back for round two, we're going to talk about leg conformation. So on the left-hand side, you have an ideal leg. You want them to be straight from the point of their wither, down their shoulder, down their forearm, down their knee, down their cannon. And they're maintaining this 45-degree angle in their shoulder and their scapula, and also in their pastern. A horse like this here is camped under because their leg is too far backwards. This is all in the front leg, keep in mind. So their knee is too far back and they're not completely straight in line. They're camped out when their leg is stretched too far in front of them. This one, called knee sprung, is also called over at the knees. This is because this horse is mostly straight. However, their knee is cocked too far over their center of balance. And then the last one on the end is calf kneed, because they're mostly straight except at the knee, they kind of bend inwards on an angle, like a baby cow would. So that's not an ideal. So your most ideal is to have a straight leg all the way down, and then the other is not. I'm trying to move my little box so I can see my screen, because all I see is all your faces. All right. So here's some examples of different hind end and front end conformation. So ideally in your hind end, you want a little bit of angulation with your gaskin and your hock. This horse is sickle hocked because their hind legs are too far underneath of them, and it kind of looks like a sickle bent shape. This horse is post-legged, where their legs are actually too straight and their point of their buttock does not meet the point of their hock. So when you're looking at their hind end, you want a straight line to run down from their point of their butt all the way down to the back of their heels. I will highlight. So you want a straight line like that. Whereas this horse, if you ran a line down the point of their butt, their legs don't match. The legs don't meet the line. So next you have from the hind, you're looking at the hind end from behind, and ideally you want to be able to run, ooh, that was a really bad line. You want to be able to run two lines all the way down from the point of the buttock down the hock like that. This horse that's cow hocked, if you run the line down, their hocks point too far inwards at each other. And this horse that's bow-legged, if you run a line down, their hocks are too far out away from them. And also, if you can tell, their feet, the bow-legged horse, their toes are pointed in, so they're pigeon-toed in the hind, and the cow-hocked horse is often splay-footed in the hind. If you're looking at here's just another example of the front legs. You want an ideal straight front leg as compared to a buck-kneed horse that's leaning too far forward with their knees, and then a calf-kneed horse that's sitting too far back on their front legs. And these are just like the feet from the front end. You're pigeon-toed, your toes point inward, you're splay-footed, your feet are placed too far wide, and then the ideal straight-legged horse. Now, some of these conformation faults, when we talk about performance horses later on throughout the weeks, some horses you want to have a less ideal conformation, like a reining horse, you would want them to be more sickle hocked sometimes because it helps them get a better slide when they're doing like a sliding stop. But ideally, you do not want normal horses to look like this. Here's just on the other side, there's just more examples of the way that the hind legs are structured. Come on, Arrow. Here's just more pictures comparing all of them. I feel like the hind legs are often really hard to tell the difference, and I felt like this picture showed a little bit better. So this horse stands too far under. This horse is pretty much an intermediate. This is what a good horse is, straight all the way down. And then that horse is camped out in the hind, where their hind legs are stretched too far behind them. Same thing here. This leg here it's straight, but it's almost too straight. It's too post-like, and they don't have their hock or their ankles hitting the same point as the through a line as their buttocks. So like this one, this is the ideal. And this one is sickle hocked again because it's like a sickle shape. There's too much angulation at the hock. Again with the hind limbs, this horse is very base. Ooh, that was a weird highlight. This horse is very base slide, so it causes them to be just very wide in their base. They stand very wide and it's not ideal. They'll track a little bit differently as if they were perfectly proportioned. And then this horse is too base narrow, so when he moves, he might hit himself in the legs, or he might walk almost like he's walking on a tightrope because his feet are just too close together. And then for this horse, you have the bow hocked again, where they're pointed outwards like a bow. You have your straight ideal, and then you have your cow hocked, where the hocks are pointed in too close together. So then we have like real life examples of the sickle hocked and the cow hocked. We also have bench knees, which I couldn't find like a picture like the previous slides about them, but bench knees are very similar to the other like hind leg or the other front leg conformation faults. However, if you can kind of see, their cannon bones are offset from their actual knee. So they say with bench knees, it's almost like you can put a bench between their legs because of the way that their legs are offset. So ideally, you would want the horse's cannon bone to be directly in the middle of the knee, and you would want their knee to be sticking out on each side. If their legs are offset, they're not going to be moving correctly, and they're more disproposed to get like splints or any kind of like tendon issues. So that's the main, just that. Then you have different kinds of feet and angulations. So this horse is club-footed. A club-footed horse, as compared to, this one isn't normal, but this is more normal than the club-footed horse. A club-footed horse, their feet is built straight up and down. It almost looks like a square shaped. And they don't have as much angulation to their hoof as they should, because the hoof and the pastern, like we had said, should be a 45-degree angle. The club-footed horse, sometimes their feet are built where they're almost straight up and down and there's no angulation. And that will cause them to not be able to move well, and they're often very lame because of it. Do you guys know why I said that this middle hoof isn't exactly ideal? No? So this horse doesn't exactly have an ideal because his pastern is a little bit too upright. It's not exactly the 45-degree angle. 45 degrees would be like, not that. That's too. 45 degrees would be like this middle line that I'm drawing now. That one, he just has a little bit too of an upright of a pastern. So that's the only reason why his is wrong. Whereas this one, the pastern has too much angulation. We call that coon-footed because they almost look like a raccoon the way their feet are. So you don't want to have too much angulation. Yes?
Was he born with that?
Most likely, yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Certain breeds have that more?
I'm not sure if certain breeds have it more, but it's definitely bad.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Would that horse be able to like walk properly?
Probably not very well. It's probably like a walking on eggshells kind of situation. I know club-footed horses, you see a lot of clubfoots in like minis and ponies.
My daughter has one.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of minis and ponies have club feet just because of the way they're built. But I'm not sure if there's a breed that gets coon-footed a lot. But they can walk, but I'm sure it's difficult. Let's see, what else? So now we have more leg things, and I'll go over the ones that I labeled, but then I'll have you guys guess what's wrong with the other ones. So these are I couldn't find good pictures of the hind leg abnormalities. So the hock has many different unsoundnesses and blemishes that they can have. You can have, ooh, I hate when it highlights like that, but you can have a capped hock where there's like a kind of like a lump on the back of the point of the hock. You have a thoroughpin, which I believe the thoroughpin is a soft sort of lump that you can move back and forth between the hock, and it's like a swelling of in the joint of the hock. You have a bog spavin, which appears on the outside of the hock, which is normally soft, and that you can move. And then you have a bone spavin, which is on the inside of the hock. The bone spavin is different from the bog spavin because the bone is actually like encapsulated minerals, and it's like a hard bony growth, and that's most often painful to the horse, whereas bog spavins, sometimes they might have it and it won't affect them at all. But the bone spavin is often very painful if they have it. And then you have a curb, which is a swelling at the lower back of the hock. And curbs are often very painful as well. It's like bowing a tendon, but in their hocks. And normally, if they don't have good, if they're sickle hocked, they're more predisposed to have a curb. So often sickle hock horses you'll see have curbs because of the way their hocks are positioned. So then we're going to go to this bottom one real fast. This is different examples of ring bone. You can have ring bone both in the lower part of the hoof and in the higher part of the hoof. Ring bone, most of the time you'd have to feel for it because you would have to feel a bony lump. And the coffin joint ring bone, which they call low ring bone, is often more common than high ring bone, but they're both bony and painful. This horse, he only has low ring bone. I just wanted to point out where the high ring bone would be on the horse. But he has, like, as you can see on the x-ray, he has like this bony growth, and that's like a disease. It's not something that they're born with or they get it over time. And you would feel like a bony thing on the outside of their hoof, like here. So now we're gonna go to this horse here. What do you guys think is wrong with this horse? Any of the kids? Carol?
Had a bow tendon.
Yep, so this horse has a bow tendon. If you guys can see, it's very swollen here. Ideally, you would want your horse's leg to kind of look like that. And because of whatever strain he did or the way he misused his legs when he was working, it caused the tendon to swell. So this is why it's a bowed. Like, just like we looked at the bowed-legged horse where their hocks were faced outward like a bow, the bowed tendon horse, they have swelling that's in this bow angular shape. So now we're going to look at the picture next to us. Do you guys know what's wrong with this horse, and does he have it on both legs? Sophie?
I'm gonna guess and say that little hump.
Right here?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's only on that leg.
Yep, it's only on that leg. Do you know what it is?
Nope.
Does anyone else know what it is? Minta says 1 minute.
Does it start with an S?
It does. Minta doesn't know. It's a splint. So horses, as we know, they have splint bones, which are these little tiny bones that run down their leg right around here. And they're often thought to be one of the toes of the earlier horses of the evolution that had receded up into their leg. So they have these little tiny bones called splints, and when this lump is caused by them popping a splint, or they break the splint bone, or there's a small like bubble encapsulation underneath the splint bone that causes it to swell. It's often painful for a horse, but it goes away rather fast, but the lump will still remain even after the splint has like reduced in swelling. So this is one of the examples, like I said earlier, that it's an unsoundness that may or may not become a blemish because this lump will still be here. The horse does not have it on the other leg is normal. Yes, Minta?
Wait, I forgot what I was gonna ask. Oh, what is that like? What is that part of the horse's leg called?
This part, the cannons.
Okay, the cannons. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like the part between the cannon and the splint bone. It often swells, or the splint bone itself will break,
Okay.
and they
Thanks.
pop a splint. Yep. All right. Now we're gonna move down to this picture of this hoof that's kind of in the middle bottom. Do we know what is wrong with this horse? Anybody?
It's puffy on one side.
It is puffy on one side. This is what the horse's foot should look like, roughly. Do we know what this puffy on the one side could possibly be? It's similar to ring bone, that's why I put it next to ring bone. So this horse most likely has side bone, which is where the horse gets a bony groove on the side of their hoof as opposed to the front of the hoof. So in ring bone, you normally feel the swelling or the bony growths on the front of the pastern, whereas theirs grows on the side. Just extra cartilage. I don't know much about why they get side bone, but sometimes it's painful. But I feel like most horses aren't affected as bad by side bone as they are by ring bone.
Yes, maybe they get used to it.
Yeah, I think they get used to it. I think it's not as painful because it's not so close to the coffin bone. So I think that's probably why. Now we're going to look at this horse here. Do we know what is wrong with this horse? Does it look normal? No. I'm going to draw lines. That's what their shoulder and elbow area should look like. This is called a capped elbow, which I believe is also sometimes called a shoe boil. It's like a swelling thing. It's not good. So that's the only problem with him. You want your shoulders and elbows to be normal. If you see a horse like that, that's not ideal. Yes.
Do people get capped elbows?
I don't know. I feel like we probably do. Not sure. All right. Let's see what else.
Do you know what that's caused by?
Not really, but I could look it up real fast while we play a fun game of name what these conformation faults are.
This is Brenda. Shoe boil can be caused by them when they have shoes on, they're laying down and they're knocking into their elbows, or if they're on a hard surface and they're laying down because their elbow touches the ground.
So that means if we're at our desk a lot, we can get that too?
Yeah, I think we might be getting it soon.
Probably.
All right, so I know this is silly, but I put it here because when I went to nationals for hippology, one of our stations was this, which was really, really sad. But it's kind of helpful for you to be able to remember the names of the conformation faults. So based off of these silly little pictures, can you guys guess what the conformation fault is? We'll start from left.
2, 3, 4, 5.
We'll start with number 1.
Wasp waist.
Yeah. So this one is wasp waisted. And do we remember what it is on a horse?
Oh, that's the skinny gaskin or something? It's skinny in the back and wide in the front?
Kind of. It's not in their gaskin. It's like in their flank area.
Yeah,
So
that's
so they're coupled like too high in their flank and they look like a wasp basically because their they're too pinched up in there.
Okay.
It's hard to explain, but they're very weird. What about number 2?
Cowhawked.
Yeah. And do we remember what cowhawked is? Where do you see it? In the front legs or the hind legs?
Hind.
There you go. What about number 3?
Meh. Say it.
Someone gotta guess it. We talked about it. What is it pointing
You
to?
know what it is. You know what it is. Spelled differently.
What part of the animal is this? I don't think anyone's looking at you, Carol. It's the neck. And what is this thing?
A sheep.
And what is a girl sheep called?
An
I don't-
ear.
You know what it is.
Yeah. Who said ew? Someone said ew. So this is an ew neck. I don't know if the sheep.
Oh, that
Ah,
I don't know if this is actual ew. I think it was. I think this is actually one of the sheep at my school. I think it was a ew.
How do you
But-
spell that?
EWE.
Oh.
wow.
So,
Mhm.
and that is when the horse's neck is, they carry their head too high and they're too pinched up in the throat and they look like a sheep. And they shouldn't look like a sheep. What is number 4?
What's the critter?
A cockroach.
And what is the circle on?
The back?
Not the front. It's the
It's a
Yeah.
roach back.
Yeah.
ding 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 ding.
Wow.
And what is a roach back on a horse?
Isn't it when it's like too like short and like not deep enough or something
Yeah.
like that?
British.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so it's when, I'll go back to that slide if it'll let me. So the roach back was when the horse's back was kind of built too high up, like this horse where he had a lump on his back. He's like almost too round in his back. He doesn't have a nice level low back. He's got a roach back.
Oh, there's the wasp waist. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so now we're back. This is where the wasp waisted is, where they're too shallow in their flank. It could also be the way this horse is positioned, but normally you'd want them to kind of be shaped like this, where their underline is a U shape. But because the underline comes like straight up in a diagonal, and then they're very short coupled in their flank area, that's what makes them wasp waisted.
Looks like a weird horse.
Really is. Alright, let's go back. Oop, I went too far. Alright, what is number 5?
It's okay. I feel like I know the answer, but I don't.
Just take a guess. Take a stab at it.
Okay. Is it coonfoot or something like that?
Number 5.
That's
Oh. That's number 6, my bad.
It's okay.
I
Wait.
can't see the number for some reason.
Yeah,
The
but
5.
number 6 is coon-footed. Can you describe what number 6 is on a horse? And then we'll go back to number 5.
that's that. We're doing 6.
We're doing 6 because I already went past it. Coon-footed because it looks like a raccoon's foot. They have too much slope in their pastern. We'll go back to number 5 now. What's number 5?
It's a deer.
It is a deer. But what kind of deer? Well, what gender deer, actually?
Not a doe.
Oh, I got it.
And what is the circle pointing to?
Yep.
His knee.
Yeah. So if it's not a doe, do you guys know what the male version is?
It's a dollar.
Buck.
So this is buckmead.
Buck. That's what I
Yep.
knew. Oh.
Yep. Do we remember what buckmead is on a horse? Lacey? Lacey?
I think it was when the knees are too far. Is it when the knees were too far forward
Yeah. So it's when they.
or too far back?
No, it's too far forward.
There
It's
was
when a
somewhere.
horse. Yep, they stand too far forward on their knees. So the opposite of that is number 7, which is.
Calf need.
There you go. And what's calf need?
It's when they stand like too far back on their knee.
Yep, there you go. And then what's good old number 8?
That's a tough one.
Big gun.
Yeah. And what's pig eye?
When their eyes are too small.
Yep, when their eyes are too small and squinty. Well, I think that's about it on my crash course of 10,000 confirmation terms that I hope you all remember. There will not be a quiz next week, I promise. Do you guys have any questions?
I did learn. I
the
did
meeting
learn a
ends?
lot.
Yay! That's good. I'm glad. I really
That's a
rushed
nice
through this.
looking horse.
Thank you. This is my standard bred.
That's a nice looking horse I'm looking at. She's pretty.
She really is when she looks nice. Not now. She's not pretty now. Do you guys have any other questions? I
You
know
have
I
little-
kind of.
Does she have dapples?
Yeah, she gets really dappled in the summer. So like this picture is from August, like the week of fair when the show was. And then I think like the first picture or one of the first pictures of her in my slide is from the qualifying show when she was also very dappled. Yeah, like in this picture, I'm kind of sad. In this picture, she's like very dappley too. It's hard to tell, but she is. Do you guys have any other questions in our last 10 minutes? I know it was a lot. It's a lot to absorb.
Did a nice job, Erin. Thank you.
Yeah, very
No
good.
problem.
Very good. So
Evan?
what has everybody been doing to stay busy? Sophie, how about you? We'll start with you.
Reading.
Reading?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. About horses?
Some.
Okay. How about you, Lacey?